Chapter 9 of The Coming People. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Coming People by Charles F. Dole. Chapter 9. The Ideal Democracy. We are accustomed to hear the fine old commonplace of our Declaration of Independence, that men are created free and equal. We are familiar with scriptures which declare that God made all men of one blood, and that we must call no man common or unclean. The modern democracy rests on these ideas. It is well to stop for a moment and ask ourselves if we really believe these things, and why we so easily think them to be true. To common appearance, men are not equal. On the contrary, as they now are, they are distinguished by startling differences. Who can really prove that all the races of men proceed from a single pair of parents? Who knows that there are not distinctly superior races, with immeasurable capacities for improvement, set over against inferior and comparatively unimprovable races, some of which, like the Indians and South Sea Islanders, are destined to die out? The differences among individual men are quite startling. How many of those whom you meet on the street can truthfully count themselves the equals of a Darwin, a Goethe, a Daniel Webster, of Paul or Luther? It is really a novel and audacious thing that we are attempting in America in calling all men to the suffrage, and addressing the beggar on the street with the same title of respect that we use for the most eminent citizen, and pronouncing Hottentots and Negroes our brethren, and contemplating the possibility of a fair distribution of the good things of the world, with equal chances for the children of the rich and the poor. Footnote 1. Of course, the common title, Mr., is simply the more ancient Master or Lord. We cannot be surprised that not everyone as yet really believes in these fine doctrines. We may forgive timid and conservative people if they apprehend trouble from an unlimited franchise held by millions of illiterate immigrants. If cultured parents are shy of free social intercourse with the families of a degraded poor white neighborhood, not to speak of the blacks, if men of affairs hardly see common terms of value between the mind of the great inventor or the captain of industry and inefficient and unskilled workmen, taking men as they are, there is not equality. Treating men as they show themselves, you cannot treat them alike, respect them alike, or pay them alike for equal values received. There are men and women who seem to deserve almost infinitely for their services to society. There are those, they may be the rich as well as the poor, who have hardly contributed a useful stroke of work. The democratic idea, and especially all socialistic hopes, rest on the basis of self-evident facts. The obvious facts are the differences between men, both in capacity and value. The truth is, the democracy, with its doctrine of equality, belongs in the realm of ideal things, or to put it very plainly, of religion. If we did not believe that this is a divine universe, if we had no faith in the ideal justice and in the supreme life of God to whom all belong, if we had not the aspirations and hopes that especially belong to religion, if we were reduced to the conception of a mere physical, material world, we should neither have any rational ground to advocate our American democracy, nor any heart to be willing to live and die for it. Democracy and religion march together to victory, or else they must go to the land of dreams. The true democracy is not here now. It is the government that ought to be. It is the ideal state, where no longer each shall ask, when he votes, what is my own selfish interest? But each shall honestly vote for the welfare of all. The ideal is of a multitude of friendly men, not merely eager, as now, to obtain their individual rights, but in earnest also to perform their fair share of duties. The democracy presupposes men of manly stature and character. It educates men. It could not have been in an era of barbarism, egotism, greed, selfishness. It did not begin to be possible till at least some men of the order of the idealist, the men of humanity and religion, appeared. The time-honored prayer says, "Thy kingdom come." This does not mean that anyone today expects a miraculous arrangement of human society, ushered in by angels. It means rather that we have the vision of a society which we are set here to bring about. We are spelling out the laws which will affect this as fast as they are obeyed. When we repeat the words of the prayer, we speak our purpose to make the ideal thing real. The question is not merely what mode of government is today most economical or efficient. We can imagine a benignant despotism or oligarchy that might safeguard life and property at less waste than we expend in America. But we do not carry on government merely to save waste. The democracy might be even more wasteful and blundering than it is now. We believe in it because of our faith in a better government toward the making of which blunders and waste are part of the price to be paid. The incomplete democracy is the expression of our incomplete efforts. Thus, we believe in manhood suffrage, and, if you please, in woman suffrage also, not only as the goal of our endeavors, but also because the problems of suffrage are so many arduous lessons set us for the achievement of noble manhood and womanhood. The incidental blundering and waste are justified, like the waste of labor in the manual training school, if only we move on toward real government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We admit that we have not reached this sort of government. It is what we purpose. Why then do we call the beggar or the tramp by the title of Mr., and give the poorest man an equal vote? We pay tribute to our faith in a coming social regime in which all are masters and mistresses. We trust the man for what he ought to be. Hate, bitterness, pride, arrogance, conscious superiority vanish from us whenever we think of the ideal human society to which every man belongs. Belongs, do we say? Yes, if this is God's universe, but not otherwise, even in our dreams. The hard-headed businessman sometimes says, almost brutally, "Why give my men extra pay? They will waste it in drink. Why give them shorter hours of labor? They do not know how to use leisure. They are better off at work." Grant that the working man does not know how to use his time or his money any better than some rich men whom we know. Why do we still advocate fairer wages and better hours? If we believed in the man only as we see him now, and in the present conditions of human society, we should have no courage to struggle in his behalf. But we believe in an ideal industrial society, and therefore we fear no advanced step, though at times our feet seem to stumble or slip. If this is a divine universe, the very blunders that we make are our lessons in learning to stand erect and to walk. In this ideal or divine democracy in which we believe, there is no leveling downward. There is no taking away of real advantage or honorable superiority from one set of men in order to even up the holdings of others. The laws of the world are forever against the success of a materialistic democracy, intent on things instead of men. We believe in a democracy that lifts men upward. Have the few attained greater happiness, security, genuine welfare? We labor together. We organize society. We boldly widen and multiply the functions of government, that all may have the essential human advantages which a few now possess. The true democracy must give expression and fulfillment to all the manhood which there is in all. We frankly admit that earlier modes of government, the individualistic traditions of which still survive, proceeded on a different principle. They were for the few, and only incidentally for the many. We do not wonder that men whose minds are possessed with the history of such governments are shy of our new democratic experiments. Like Herbert Spencer, they warn us that government ought to do the least possible for the people. We accept the warnings of the past, but we confront new human circumstances and a new ideal of government. We are under the pressure of a new set of facts. We believe, as many do not yet really believe, in evolution. The day may have passed for the appearance of higher physical types and species. The day cannot have passed for the development of a higher moral order. This is indeed the stage of evolution which we should naturally look for next. As the normal man passes up through the tumultuous life of childhood and youth into wise and self-controlled maturity, through doubts to broad and settled faith, so the race moves from its childhood toward true civilization, the era of the good spirit. Government, therefore, inevitably takes on new meanings and enlarged uses. Government moves for a different end from that which men thought of in the days of Charlemagne. This doctrine of the ideal democracy fits into and tallies with a very wonderful conception of the possibilities of the individual man. We say that in some real sense a man is a child of the universe, or a son of God. This means that we do not much care through how many weary ages man has been traveling upward, or what the man is today. What interests us chiefly is the magnificent possibilities before him. Our eye is on the ideal or divine man. We love and respect the man for infinitely more than for what he is now. As in a school, if we are told that a certain child, born to a fortune, is destined to hold a grand position, the more dull and unpromising he is, the more we are ready to do in order to make him worthy of the great position which he is to occupy. So we feel when you show us a man, though dull and degraded. Tell us that this man in his rags is by birthright the citizen of the divine universe, that unmeasured potentialities are wrapped up in him, that the difference between the average man on the street and the great genius is not so great as the difference between this man as he is and the ideal man such he is destined to become. And we see now what the genuine men of religion used to mean when they spoke of the transcendent value of a single human soul. Nothing less than this is our faith. Nothing less than this superb idea of the individual man gives our American democracy standing room in the rational universe. We are not afraid that the true democracy will undertake to do too much for its citizens. We have reason to fear the power of men who hold office for themselves and for what they may get. We doubtless have to deal with such men for some time to come. But we look forward to an enlightened type of citizenship. Men will hold power in order to confer benefit, to give, not to get. Every individual of this type is in earnest that others of like sort will appear. It is absurd to suppose, if this is God's world, that men must always be selfish barbarians. We have here the secret of Christianity. The simple, beautiful, modern teaching brings it out to the light, after it has been buried in dogma for centuries. Men had made of Christianity a sort of spiritual aristocracy, well suited for the medieval world. The great church had taught that Jesus' life was unique and exceptional, out of line with all common and unclean humanity. They had boasted of Jesus' earthly descent, that he came of the lineage of kings, thus removing him from the common herd. They had taught that, by the mystic laying on of priestly hands, supernatural powers were conveyed to the few, thus lifted above the brotherhood of the many. Now see the impressiveness of the new teaching. Jesus' life is not exceptional, but illustrative and typical. The more just, transparent, lovable it is made to appear, the better an object lesson it becomes of the possibilities in all human lives. It was simply the normal human life, as it ought to be. What Jesus was, what he felt, what he believed and aspired after, illustrated the ideal possibilities of every human soul. There is not the slightest evidence that this grand human life sprang from a royal line at all. The beauty of it is that it arose from the common people and showed forth what divinity is wrapped up, not in choice blue blood, but in the common red blood that flows in us all. If there is one thing plain in the New Testament, it is that all that class of persons who think themselves of finer clay than the rest would not have recognized the real Jesus if they could have seen him. This Galilean carpenter's son is not the Christ whom exclusive persons celebrate. The beginnings of Christianity also are almost startling for the object lessons that they present of the possibilities of the ordinary and average man. Jesus did not even choose the best, or he might at least have had disciples who would not have run away from him. He took his chances with such men as you find on the streets, slow and dull in mind, narrow in their sympathies, unchivalric and quarrelsome. It is as if he wanted to show what the leaven of a great idea could do with average men. Presently, though not till after the death of their master, these men catch the idea. Lo, they too are sons of God, citizens of his majestic universe, heirs of his own immortality, under orders to serve his good will. Straightway these men are raised to a new power. They become brave and unselfish. They are leaders and organizers. A great responsibility taken on their shoulders brings out the vital elasticity within them. They become speakers and writers. These things are only typical and illustrative. Human history is full of the records of just such flowering forth of the common stock of our humanity at the quickening touch of a sublime idea. You can dare to call no man common or unclean. Wait, let a great thought, a faith, a hope, a sense of the divine universe, the consciousness of his kinship with God, once possess a man, and you can never measure the unseen capacities within him. From the story of Peter and James, plain fishermen, who would not have understood what now goes on in the cathedrals called by their names, or recognized the pontifical and archiepiscopal robes and chariots of their supposed successors, to the latest doings of the Salvation Army, human experience is forever gleaming out in sparks of prophetic fire. The fact is, we hardly realize yet how much religion can do for us. Truthfulness, integrity, courage, kindliness, faith both in God and man, and enthusiasm flow right out of the heart of our common humanity. Whenever any human soul is seized with the idea of the divine universe, and as long as that inspiring idea holds sway, these qualities are apart from and deeper than all superficial and conventional culture and refinement, the agreeable veneer of society. Say, rather, these are the solid humane qualities which most aptly take on the pleasing polish of good manners, and without which the most refined manners are hypocrisy. They are the qualities that always command love and respect. I may have seemed to admit that the true democracy is only an ideal. Like all ideal things, however, it proves most practical and workable as soon as you try it. Curiously enough, our democratic form of government, with all its blunderings, is already better and safer than any other government that has ever been tried. So far as it fails, it is not because we have thoroughly trusted and tested it, but rather because under the name of the government of the people, we have suffered the rule of the one or the few. It is wonderful how in the crises of our American history, and especially in the moral issues, as in the contest with the slave power, the appeal to the people and to all the people has been eminently justified. On the other hand, it is startling to find how often the few, the educated, and the wealthy have developed a fatal proneness to get on the wrong side, and to act and vote from their prejudices. Though, as a whole, the people are certainly slow, yet, whenever you will take the trouble to inform them, whenever you appeal to their sense of justice and their chivalry, the sturdy qualities that mark the divine citizenship are energetic among them. You can scarcely take up a newspaper without reading of the instances of courage, devotion, self-sacrifice, heroism,
all going to show the splendid possibilities shining out in common human lives, and forever forbidding us from calling any man common, unclean, or inferior. Thus the facts match our splendid theory. Treat men on their nobler side, look for their best, be patient with them, rebuke them if you must, not because they wrong you, but because they wrong and shame their own divine manhood. Begin with the children in the kindergarten, and expect to find true gentlemen and real ladies among them. Nay, more, think largely of yourself and your work, not as your own, but as God's. Never, by an act or gesture, cheapen, demean, or dishonor your manhood, and in every case you tend to elicit the facts that you seek. You are on the track of nature and law. You are making the better society, the juster economics, the more righteous government which you have seen in your vision. Lo, it appears already to be safe to trust our ideals, to follow them, to think, plan, act, vote, live toward their realization. End of chapter 9.